Hello, I'm an old fart, and I have a guilty pleasure. I like knives. I'm not an expert or an official representative of anything or anybody. I just like knives. For the last year or so, you've been joining me on a tour through my collection of small folding pocket knives, and I appreciate the company. Today, we are going to step way outside the bounds of my normal collection and have a look at this knife. This is a Chris Reeve Umnumzaan, an amazing knife with a lot of amazing characteristics, which is about as far from my stated interest, which is non-threatening gentlemen's knives, as a folding knife can easily get. But I still kind of like it. So anyway, why? Why a knife so far from what I say I collect? Well, because it's a Chris Reeve. And over the years, as I acquired a number of Chris Reeves, it kind of became an objective of mine to get them all. I don't have them all yet. There are quite a few discontinued models that I don't have, but I'm getting close to having everything that is actually available. And anyway, I wanted this one to complete the collection, and I had read a lot of good things about it. And I must say, I'm glad to have it. I don't really like it. Oh my God, what did I just say? This is a Chris Reeve knife, and I said I don't really like it. Let me clarify. I like having it, because I like having Chris Reeve knives, and they're beautifully made pieces of craftsmanship. And it would be a great knife for camping. It would be a great in-car emergency roadside knife. It could easily replace my DPX Hest that I use for that purpose. Except I'm not worried about losing the DPX in a ditch, and I would be worried about losing the Umnumzaan. My problem with it is that it is not in any way a non-threatening gentleman's knife, which is the thing I say I collect. And also it has a kind of a surprising problem related to my CMR rating, which we'll get to in a minute. So anyway, let's have a look at it a little more formally. So this is a Chris Reeve Knives Umnumzaan. This is the right-handed drop point model. There is a fully left-handed version available, and there is a tanto blade available in addition to this, the drop point. The mechanism is, of course, what is famous about Chris Reeve knives. It's a thumbsted opening mechanism, a frame lock knife, and as I've said before, probably better to call a Chris Reeve knife the frame lock, because the official patented name of this mechanism is the Reeve integral lock. They invented the frame lock concept. This one is a little different. Unlike all of the other frame lock or thumb stud Chris Reeve knives, this doesn't use an internal stop pin to halt the motion of the blade when it's opening. Instead, this is a kind of an innovative design. It's actually the thumb studs that stop the opening. The thumb stud encounters the top of the frame. And it's actually, if I turn it so you can see, there's actually a tiny little recess milled in there, exactly the radius of the thumb stud, and it comes to rest in that little recess, and that is the stop pin. Now, just as an additional little design thing, there are tiny O-rings on the stop pin, so when it makes that contact, it's soft and padded, which is why when you open this knife, there is no sound. Listen. Let's compare that to a similarly sized Chris Reeve knife. I'll open this Sebenza 31. Look at that amazing clunk when it snaps open. This knife opens completely silently. Interesting. And because of that double thumb stud on the frame locking mechanism, it is extremely sturdy, much more so than an internal locking pin. So you can beat the hell out of this knife, they say, and it will put up with it. So anyway, that's the mechanism. The size, this is a big knife. It's 215 millimeters open, which makes it 1.2 pocket calculators, way over a pocket calculator. So almost the largest knife in my collection, certainly the largest knife in my collection that I ever actually use. Way bigger than a mini griptilian, which is kind of my standard of the size I like. And it's even slightly larger than the large Sebenza, a millimeter or two larger than the large Sebenza. So big knife. Another thing that's generally considered a large-ish knife is you can see it's quite a bit larger than a Benchmade 940. So it is a big knife. It's also a heavy knife. It's 141 grams. The large Sebenza is 133, so 10 grams more than a large Sebenza. Happens to be almost exactly the same as the large Inkosi. 141 grams, 140 grams, I think. So, about the same. Big knife, heavy knife. The blade is long. The blade is 3.7 inches long. So it's way over the 3-inch limit that matters in some places. The blade is S45 VN steel on this one. This is one of the newer models. It was S35 VN for many years, and they've gradually been upgrading them to S45 VN. They call the blade a drop point, and I mean it does drop to the point, but it's certainly an unusual drop point. It's got this waved spine on the back and actually a sharpened back spine in the last 3/4 of an inch or so of the blade, which we'll come back to. So anyway, technically a drop point. As I said, there's a tanto available. The body is really robust on this thing. It is solid titanium. No liners, just titanium slabs. Titanium is rough finished, rough sandblasting, so very grippy anyway. And then it's got these milled crosshatch grooves. So it is extremely grippy, even wearing gloves. So a great working knife for slippery conditions and wearing gloves like winters outdoors where I live. Clip is bent titanium sheet, pretty much the standard Chris Reeve clip. There's the Inkosi clip, for example. I think those are identical. And the clip sits in a milled recess, so it sits flush with the body there. Very nice. And it is one-sided. There's only milling for it on this side, so you cannot move it to the other side. Lanyard doesn't use a lanyard hole like the Sebenza 31. It uses a rotating lanyard pin. So the pin is pierced, the lanyard goes through the pin, and the pin is free rotating. So the lanyard can easily move like this without abrading itself on the body of the knife, which is nice. There's also a disadvantage to that we'll get to in a second. How about ambidextrousness? Ambidextrositude? No, very much not. Of course, double-sided thumb studs, that's ambidextrous, and there really isn't a noticeable difference in the clearance, so you can open it about equally easily or difficultishly on either side. But being a frame lock, it's very one-sided locking mechanism and a very one-sided clip. However, there is a fully left-handed version of the knife available. So a lefty can order this knife in a complete mirror image, so it is left hand and left hand only. And for people who care, it is manufactured in the US, and you can see there it proudly says Idaho made on the edge of the frame. So that's the tour. Let's talk a little bit about likes and dislikes. There's a lot to like about this knife. That action is amazing. It's very smooth. It's not easy, by the way, to open. That takes getting the angle exactly right and a fair amount of effort to get it moving. Definitely not a flickable knife. It opens with that typical Chris Reeve smooth action, and it locks open. The locking is a very strange experience. You feel a slight little snick as the lock falls into position. There's no sound whatsoever. On most other knives, if I open it and I get that little noise, I assume that it hasn't locked firmly. This one does. So interesting and pleasant mechanism. Those O-rings padding the sort of the landing of the pins is part of the reason it's so quiet, of course. I wonder if those O-rings are going to wear out. I mean, they are rubber, and I suppose they will, with enough opening and closing. I also wonder if they might get brittle in the cold. You remember the O-rings on the Challenger that became brittle and were part of the Challenger disaster. So if I'm outdoors at -20, -30 degrees, how are those O-rings going to behave? I don't know. Anyway, for me, I won't be carrying it enough for that to be a problem. I get it out and play with it now and then. I'll use it occasionally if I'm outdoors doing some heavy outdoor work, camping, chopping down a small building, that kind of thing. But I won't be carrying it enough for wear on the O-rings to be a problem. I do like the steel S45VN. Honestly, can't say I can tell any difference. I like S35VN very much, and from everything I've read, this is sort of incremental improvements, so why wouldn't you want that? The grip is great, very grippy scales. Next thing, I'm going to come back to this under the don't like side as well, but the blade is interesting. Of course, the live edge of the blade is sharp here, and very sharp. The back of the blade, your normal crowned Chris Reeve spine here, but this last 2 centimeters is actually sharpened. Let me hold that so you can see it. There we are. That's actually a sharpened wedge there. Now it's much thicker than the live edge of the blade, but it does come to a sharpened point. You can cut with that. And I'm not really sure what that's for. I imagine it makes it a better piercer. I also imagine that if I had to scrape a fire steel, I could do that there. And that would be less horrifying than scraping a fire steel on the live blade. So I'm not really sure what that's for or if I like it, but anyway, it's interesting. The main thing that you like about the Umnumzaan is the incredible sturdiness with that double lock there, the extra heavy material. I can't imagine what I could try to do with this thing that would make me doubt its sturdiness. Cutting, of course. I wouldn't hesitate to do light chopping with this thing. I could probably even baton it, although I wouldn't do that by choice, but I think, if it was life or death and I had to do it, I think I could. So it is a really good cutter. It's comfortable to hold, cuts well. Now it is a thick blade. It's not a slicer. I don't think this is the knife I would choose if I was trying to slice a cucumber into paper-thin slices. But for cutting wood, whittling, preparing firewood, it's fantastic for that. Also should mention there's a glass breaker here on the heel of the blade. I have no earthly use for a glass breaker, but it's kind of cool that it's there. So it just kind of reinforces that this is a heavy use working dude's knife. And since I'm not really a heavy use or a working dude sort of person, I don't know why I have it, but I still like it a lot. Now there are some things I don't like. We've already pointed out the first one. I'm just going to come back to it. This sharpened spine on the back of the blade. Like I said, I don't really know what that's for, but I do know something about it that I don't like, which is this. If I close the blade, that sharpened spine is still there. It's exposed, about 1 centimeter of it now. That's sharp. And I can cut myself on that. And in fact, I've done so several times. And I have a real problem with the ability to cut myself on a closed knife. Now think about how this sits in the pocket. Okay, if I put this in my pocket, so that's clipped. There's the edge of my pocket. It's sitting there like that. And if I do what I usually do to withdraw the knife from my pocket, which is reach into my pocket to grab the knife, I'm grabbing that live blade. And I've cut myself here and here and here 3 or 4 times already on this thing, not having had it, well, having had it quite a while, not having used it that often. I've cut myself, basically every time I carry it, I cut myself at least once on it. And that is just crazy. What I need to do, and this is the only knife where this matters, the lanyard is more than just decorative. I need to learn to pull it out of my pocket with the lanyard, not by trying to grab the knife. I have a real problem with that. Who the hell approved that design where you can cut yourself on a closed blade? I'm really shocked at that. A few other little things I don't like. We'll come back to this in my rating system in a minute. This looks weapony. Oscillating edge on the blade, the sharpened spine, the cross hatches. I mean, that doesn't look like it was designed to be a gentleman's office tool. It looks like a weapon. It's threatening, and I don't like that. In fact, I'd go so far as to say I think it's a little bit ugly. Ugly in a utilitarian way, but ugly. Next, dislike. It has the same rotating lanyard pin as the Sabenza, which means, and I won't make this mistake, I did make this mistake on my Sebenza, if I take the lanyard out, the pin rattles. Now in this case, I'm not going to take the lanyard out because I need it to not cut myself, but still, if I take the lanyard out, the pin rattles. And I think that's a silly design feature in such an expensive knife. And finally, I don't need that cross-hatched grip in my knife handle. I've no doubt there are many people who do, no doubt. But I just don't use knives in that extreme conditions and with gloves. I don't need that much grip. And I think it contributes to the threatening look of the knife, which I don't care for. Now, before anybody asks, no, you can't have it. I'm not selling it. I'm keeping it. I like having it and I like using it. Okay? I just am surprised at some of the strange design features. Anyway, let's go through my knife rating system just to sort of nail that home. First, I'm going to go through my NTGK rating, my non-threatening gentleman's knife rating. Now, I should say right up front, this is a joke. First of all, you understand that these rating systems are jokes anyway, right? They were always intended at that. But in this case, rating this thing as a non-threatening gentleman's knife is definitely a joke. You know, should we just give it an F now, or should I go through the motions, right? Because it's not non-threatening and it's not a gentleman's knife. But what the hell? Let's go through the rating. We'll do non-threatening first. So for non-threatening, there is actually some good. The good news for non-threatening is that you can open it slowly, which is good. Okay. No switchblade scariness there. You can open it two-handed, which is good. Okay. And the opening is silent, which I think for being non-threatening is good. A blade that makes a loud noise when opened, take this one, scares people. They go, was that switchblade? So this one opens silently. Now, after a while, people might start to wonder, wait a minute, does it open completely silently so that you can sneak up on your enemies in the dark? Like, maybe there is a threateningness hidden in that, but at least the initial impression is not scary, so that's good. Now, the bad under non-threatening is the appearance. It's a weapony looking handle and a weapony looking blade. It's big, it's pointy, it's stabby, this strange double edge here, which can only be for better stabbing your enemies or the bear that's attacking you. And I don't know the purpose of this double curved spine on the blade, except that it somehow makes it a more effective weapon. And even the scales, I think, are kind of tactical and weapony looking. So it is designed to look serious and scary. I'd give it a C as non-threatening, I think. How about as a gentleman's knife? Well, the good news as a gentleman's knife is the materials, premium materials. Nice new steel, titanium, and of course, the well-known and highly respected brand. The bad about gentleman's knife is pretty much everything else. It's big. It's heavy. It weighs down your pocket like crazy. You really can't wear this in dress pants. It's shallow carry. It sticks out a long way. Not only the knife sticks out, but the lanyard sticks out flopping in the wind. People wonder, what if you got a rodent in there? And it looks like a hunting knife, not a gentleman's accessory. So I'll give it a C as a gentleman's knife as well. Which, to answer the question I asked a moment ago, see, I just cut myself on it again just by holding it because that's live blade. Anyway, the question I asked a while ago, shall we just give it an F right now? No, I'm not going to give it an F, but I'm going to give it a C. It's just not a non-threatening gentleman's knife. How about the KN rating? What will my knife nerd friends think? Well, they, of course, will love it. The brand, it's a Chris Reeve. The model, it's an Umnumzaan. That's a rare model. People have heard about them. Not that many people have them, and they're not easy to get, so they like that. Amazing blade, typical Chris Reeve craftsmanship. Amazing blade, beautiful shape, beautiful hollow ground, beautiful edge, weird back. The innovative opening mechanism takes a little while to learn to do it. And then they go, whoa, silent and so sturdy. That's really amazing. The rumored strength of a fixed blade in a folding knife. They'll love all those things. Are there cons for knife nerds? I don't know. I guess, well, first of all, I've read that some people don't like the opening mechanism. I don't find it difficult to use or unpleasant, but apparently some people don't care for it. And of course, cutting yourself on a closed knife is not a plus. I would warn my knife nerd friends if I hand them this to fondle. Yeah, be careful, that's live blade there. So because of that cutting yourself thing, I'm going to give it an A and not an A+ as a knife nerd rating. And finally, the CMR rating. Well, my normal rule is, if I haven't cut myself, A. If I've cut myself through a minor thing that is basically my fault, B. If I've cut myself because of what I think is a design error with the knife, C. And if this thing should be destroyed and the designer arrested, D. I'm going to give this a C. I think the fact that there is live sharpened edge sitting there, sticking out of the handle on a closed knife, is a design error. I don't know what else to call that, and I've cut myself on it many times. The thing that surprises me is I've never seen a reviewer mention that. Do I have unreasonable expectations that a knife should be safe when it's closed? Or maybe they aren't normally sharpened and this one, accidentally fell into the sharpening machine the wrong way around. I don't know. I don't know why no one's ever mentioned it. So anyway, a C as the cut myself rating. So to summarize, it's an amazing knife. Silent and smooth action that is really neat. Sturdy beyond belief. Strange design issue with cutting myself. I need it to fill out my Chris Reeve collection. I'm going to keep it. But it's so far from the non-threatening gentleman's knife category that I rarely carry it. I probably will when I'm camping or when more outdoor activity resumes. Anybody who needs the sturdiest, hardest to use knife imaginable and isn't worried about it looking scary would certainly find it a wonderful knife to have. Thanks for following along. See you next time. Bye-bye.